Warning, this video isn't meant for kids because it might be scary, I guess. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello there. So, you might have heard about the Northwestern Railway, right? And one little engine in particular, a little small green saddle tank engine named Percy. Well, what if I told you that there was another railway on the mainland had another saddle tank engine quite like Percy, but this engine was the exact opposite of him. This is the story. Many years ago, on the other railway, there was a small little railway that had so many engines. From Pacifics to small shunters, the railway had it all, and it had some of the most nicest engines on the railway. All except one, a small little grey saddle tank engine who looked with 4 wheels and looked like he was based on a Great Western design. This engine did not have a name or a number, or, dare I say it, never lived long enough to receive one. The engine, who was called the Grey Saddle Tank Engine by the other engines, was a rude engine who always yelled at the other engines and just basically tells them what to do and all that. Even the ones who didn't even do anything to him. The engine had a big anger problem, and he's been always take his anger and frustration on the bigger engines. One time he was yelling at a new built engine who didn't even know the engine. However, every time that he's yelling at another engine, two certain engines are always there to tell him off. One of them being a B12 locomotive named Alfred. "Stop bullying other engines," he said. But the grey engine just sniffs. "Why should you care? At least you have a name, Al." "Look, I understand your frustration, but you can't take your anger out on a newly built engine. Or just get lost." The other engine, who still thinks this engine could still be kind-hearted, was a very old engine named Dane, who was always worried about the young grey saddle tank engine. "I don't get why you think that he could be redeemed, Dane. There's no good in him." "Nonsense, Howard. Everyone could be redeemed." He even tried and asked the grey engine, see what was wrong, but he just didn't care. He even blew steam at him. It was actually implied that the grey saddle tank engine hates tender engines, but weirdly he actually somewhat gets along with the tank engines, but never really had a conversation with them, but he never yells at them. The grey saddle tank engine's backstory is that he was built for World War I, built in 1916 for the Army, the War Department, but his design wasn't as good as the other locomotives, and so he was sold off to make a quick buck, and was never given a name or a number, and all the other engines had names or numbers, and he resented them all for it. Worst of all, he was rough, riding, and careless. Despite his anger issues, the manager kept him around because even though the engine had an anger issue, he was still a hard worker and dedicated his work. Like, he does all his work and he gets it on time and he does a really good job. So the manager kept him around, saying, "As long as he's working, I don't care who he's yelling at." One night, 6 engines were in the sheds. Dean and the grey saddle tank engine were part of them. This was in 1944 during the Second World War, and the engines were either sleeping or just scared, or just didn't really care. However, the grey saddle tank engine was woken up and was getting his fire lit up Apparently, there was meant to be a gunpowder train that was meant to be taken, but the engine who was meant to take it broke down and it was at the works. So since the grey cell tank engine was the closest engine, he was assigned to it. He said he did the work, and so he went off. Dean warned him to be careful. "Be careful, youngster," he said. "If you bump the vans, you could go sky high." But the grey cell tank engine didn't listen. Not even a thank you to the old engine. Little did he know that this will be the last time Dane will see the grey cell tank engine in one piece. The rain was pelting hard, but the little cell tank engine continued on, desperate and dedicated to get the job done. However, tragedy struck. A spark from the engine's funnel landed into one of the vans, which caused the train to explode. Kaboom! Dane woke up and the driver and fireman came and told him they had to go investigate the incident. So Dane, worried about the grey cell tank engine, went to look for him. But when he arrived, he was horrified. No. All that was left of the grey cell tank engine, his boiler was literally being burnt up. He was on fire. Worst of all was his face. His lamp that he usually carries cracks, and it was now broken. The engine's face was half burnt, and he was killed on impact. His face was so horrifying to look at. Literally the next day, early in the morning, the manager sold the grey cell tank engine for scrap, and Alfred took him. Alfred was very upset about it. We warned him, but he just never listened. The manager did get a new cell tank engine to replace the grey cell tank engine, and it was a pug, and he was actually more nicer. However, the manager later passed away, and his successor didn't really like steam locomotives, so he began replacing them with diesel locomotives. Unfortunately, many engines from the railway had unfortunate fates. Some of them were sent for scrap, and it was quite sad to see. However, Alfred and Dane were bought by the same heritage railway, and they're still there to this very day, along with a few other engines who would like to be saved. And as for the grey cell tank engine, some say that he still roams the railway after the last steam engine left, as a warning to others, plunging into the night, screeching like a lost soul. And rumour has it, the diesels knew that the engine's still there, as they see it rolling through the night, screeching to burst, on its way into the night, where it blew up. I wonder if the diesels are right. Don't you?